Most people think Kabbalah is either a secret code for magicians or a mystical side note of Judaism. But that misses the real shock. For centuries, Kabbalah has been treated as a map of creation, a theory of consciousness, a method of reading scripture, a language of divine power, and for many initiates, a practical system for inner transformation. So the real question is not simply, what is Kabbalah? The deeper question is this: how did one tradition become so powerful that rabbis, Christian philosophers, occult orders, mystics, and modern esoteric schools all believed they were touching the same hidden structure of reality through it? And if they were not all talking about the same thing, what exactly were they seeing? To understand Kabbalah, we have to begin before the word itself became famous. Its roots lie in ancient Jewish reverence for the living power of divine speech. In the Hebrew worldview, creation is not built from dead matter alone. It unfolds through word, number, pattern, and command. God speaks, and reality appears. That idea shaped everything that came later. The prophets, the visionary literature of late antiquity, and the early mystical traditions around Ezekiel's chariot and the ascent through heavenly realms all helped prepare the ground. Long before formal Kabbalah emerged, there were already Jewish seekers trying to understand how the infinite could relate to the finite, how divine names could hold power, and how sacred text could contain multiple layers of meaning. This is also where we begin to see why Kabbalah later resonated with so many other traditions. The ancient world was full of systems trying to explain how unity becomes multiplicity. Neoplatonists spoke of emanation. Pythagoreans saw number as the hidden architecture of reality. Certain Gnostic and late antique currents explored layers of cosmos and soul. Kabbalah is not identical to any of these, and serious students should resist flattening them into one vague, ancient wisdom. But there are structural echoes. The same old human question keeps returning. How does the unseen become the seen? What we call Kabbalah in the historical sense begins to take clearer form in the Middle Ages, especially between the 12th and 13th centuries in Provence and Spain. Earlier texts like the Sefer Yetzirah had already introduced a striking idea. That creation is linked to the Hebrew letters and numbers in a deeply structured way. Then came texts like the Bahir, and eventually the Zohar, the most famous work in the Kabbalistic tradition. Whether one sees the Zohar as a revealed mystical text or as a layered medieval composition, its impact is beyond dispute. It transformed Kabbalah from a scattered current into a vast, symbolic universe. At the center of that universe is one of the most important ideas in all esoteric thought. The infinite cannot be reduced to an object. In Kabbalah, the ultimate divine reality is often called Ein Sof, the endless, that which is beyond limit, beyond form, beyond complete comprehension. And yet, the world exists. So how does the unknowable relate to the knowable? Kabbalah answers through the doctrine of emanation, often expressed through the 10 sefirot. This is where many people get lost, because the sefirot are often oversimplified into a chart. But they are more than symbols on a diagram. They are ways of describing the living unfolding of divine presence into manifest reality. Crown, wisdom, understanding, mercy, severity, beauty, victory, splendor, foundation, kingdom. These are not separate gods, not detachable energies in the modern self-help sense, and not merely abstract categories. They are relational principles, powers, modes, and patterns through which the hidden becomes visible. They describe the cosmos, but also the soul. They describe God's self-disclosure, but also the structure of moral and spiritual life. That is why the Tree of Life became so central. It is not just an image. It is a grammar. It shows flow, balance, polarity, and return. Mercy without restraint becomes chaos. Severity without compassion becomes cruelty. Beauty emerges as harmony. Foundation channels what is above into manifestation below. Kingdom, often associated with the world of presence and embodiment, reminds us that spirit does not end in abstraction. It descends into life, history, body, community, and action. And this is where Kabbalah becomes much more than philosophy. It becomes existential. The world appears fractured. Human beings feel divided within themselves. Good and evil, exile and homecoming, concealment and revelation, all become part of one drama. In my opinion, this is one reason Kabbalah has endured for so long. It does not pretend that reality is simple. It offers a way to think about fragmentation without surrendering to meaninglessness. Over time, different branches of Kabbalah emerged. One major current is often called the theosophical or theurgic tradition, especially associated with the medieval Kabbalists and the symbolic world of the Zohar. Here the focus is on the structure of divine manifestation and the way human action, especially prayer, ritual intention, and ethical life, participates in cosmic repair. In this view, what happens below matters above. Human life is not spiritually irrelevant. It has consequence in the fabric of the worlds. Another current appears in the work of Abraham Abulafia, whose ecstatic or prophetic Kabbalah emphasizes letter, permutations, breath, focused attention, and altered states of consciousness. This is one of the clearest examples of Kabbalah as method. Rather than only mapping the divine order, it becomes a path of direct transformation. For some practitioners, sacred language is not only studied, it is enacted, sounded, contemplated, and interiorized until consciousness itself changes. Then, in the 16th century, comes one of the most influential developments of all, the Kabbalah of Isaac Luria in Saft. Here the story becomes even more dramatic. Lurianic Kabbalah speaks of Chimtsum, the divine contraction, a mysterious withdrawal or concealment that makes space for creation. Then comes the breaking of the vessels, a catastrophe in which the original containers of divine light cannot hold what pours into them. Sparks are scattered. Fracture enters the cosmos. And now the task of human life becomes tikkun, repair, restoration, the lifting and reintegration of those scattered sparks. Whether one reads this literally, metaphysically, psychologically, or ritually, its power is enormous. Suddenly, the brokenness of the world is not an accident outside spirituality. It is part of the spiritual story itself. And human beings are not just observers. They are participants in repair. When I first understood that idea, what struck me was how modern it feels without being modern at all. It speaks to alienation, division, and inner conflict, but through a sacred cosmology rather than secular therapy. Later, many of these Kabbalistic currents were internalized in Hasidic thought, where the language of divine immanence, sacred joy, intentionality, and the presence of hidden sparks in ordinary life became more accessible to broader communities. This matters because it shows that Kabbalah was never only about elite secrecy. Yes, there were initiatic dimensions, and yes, certain teachings were restricted. But there was also a movement toward inwardness, devotion, and lived spirituality. By the Renaissance, Kabbalah had crossed into new worlds. Christian thinkers like Giovanni Pico della Mirandola and Johannes Reuchlin saw in it a key to ancient wisdom and attempted to read it through Christian theology. This gave rise to what is often called Christian Kabbalah. Later still, in the 19th and 20th centuries, occult and esoteric movements developed what is now commonly called Hermetic Qabalah. This is where the tree of life became a universal map of correspondences in Western esotericism. Orders like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and later many magical and initiatic systems, linked the sefirot and paths to planets, elements, tarot, angelology, alchemy, ritual grades, and stages of consciousness. This is also where secret societies and initiatic schools found Kabbalah so useful. Not because it was fashionable, but because it provided an extraordinary symbolic architecture. For initiates, the tree of life became a way to organize the ascent of the soul, the discipline of the mind, the purification of desire, and the reconciliation of opposites. In esoteric schools, Kabbalah often functions as a master diagram. It connects cosmology to ritual, ethics to symbolism, and metaphysics to practice. But serious initiates know that memorizing correspondences is not the same as transformation. The point is not to collect exotic terms. The point is to become ordered inwardly. And that brings us to practice. How do experienced people actually use this knowledge? In traditional Jewish settings, Kabbalistic ideas may shape prayer, scriptural interpretation, meditative intention, ethical refinement, and mystical contemplation. In more Western esoteric settings, practitioners may work with the tree of life as a meditative map, using it to analyze recurring patterns in the self, to structure ritual work, to balance inner forces, or to understand symbolic relationships between different layers of experience. Some contemplate the tension between mercy and severity in their own lives. Some use the sefirot to examine where they are blocked, overextended, passive, or fragmented. Some use sacred language in disciplined and reverent ways to deepen concentration and awareness. In all serious cases, the pattern is the same. Kabbalah is not meant to remain a decorative idea. It is meant to become a way of seeing. Of course, modern culture has also distorted it. Kabbalah has been commercialized, simplified, detached from Hebrew, stripped from Jewish history, and repackaged as instant mysticism. That is why it is important to be precise. Jewish Kabbalah, Christian Kabbalah, and Hermetic Qabalah are historically related, but they are not interchangeable. They overlap, borrow, reinterpret, and diverge. Understanding that distinction actually makes the subject more fascinating, not less. So let me ask you this. When you hear the word Kabbalah, do you think first of Jewish mysticism, occult symbolism, or a map of consciousness? Comment below, because that answer reveals a lot about how this tradition is being understood today. Beneath all these forms, there is a deeper thread, what many would call a perennial insight. Reality is layered. The visible depends on the invisible. The human being is a mirror of something greater. Language is not only descriptive, but creative. Ethical life, spiritual perception, and cosmic order are linked. And the goal of knowledge is not just information, but reintegration. That may be the most important thing to understand about Kabbalah. It is not merely about secrets hidden from the masses. It is about learning how to read existence as if it were charged with meaning from top to bottom. So if we return to the question from the beginning, what is Kabbalah really? It is a mystical tradition, yes. A symbolic language, yes. A theology of emanation, yes. A method of contemplation, for some, yes. A tool of initiation, in later esoteric hands, also, yes. But underneath all of that, Kabbalah is an attempt to explain how the infinite is present in the finite without ever being reduced to it. And once you see that, the whole subject changes. It stops looking like a strange collection of symbols and starts looking like one of the most ambitious spiritual maps ever created. If this video helped you see Kabbalah in a deeper way, leave a like, because that really helps the channel keep making serious content like this. And tell me in the comments which branch of Kabbalah you want explored next. The Zohar, Lurianic Kabbalah, Hermetic Qabalah, or practical tree of life symbolism. Subscribe, share this with someone who thinks Kabbalah is just a cult decoration. And at the end of this video, open the playlist on your screen. Because if this subject spoke to you, the next layer of the journey is already waiting there.